Lesson 7-5, Adding and Subtracting Polynomials. Our essential question today is how do you add and subtract polynomials? Our first question says, find each sum. 7y squared plus 2y minus 3 plus 2 minus 4y plus 5y squared. And then the instructions give you a couple of clues. Identify the like terms and then combine them by adding or subtracting them. So we have an addition sign in between our polynomials. So that means that we're adding them together. But you may recall that we can only add together terms that are like terms. And when we're adding them, depending on the signs in front of them, we sometimes actually end up subtracting. So hopefully this will come back to you. It's a little bit of review from something that we've seen a little bit earlier in the year when we worked with like terms in chapter 1. So I am going to stick with standard form here. So that means I'm going to start with the highest exponent and work my way down to the lowest. So I see in my first term 7y squared. That term has the degree of 2. And then in the second polynomial, I see plus 5y squared. So when we're adding together 7y squared plus 5y squared, remember all that we do is we add the coefficient numbers in front. So 7y squared plus 5y squared equals 12y squared for our first term. Now I'm going to switch colors and I'm going to go with blue for my positive 2y, and I'm adding to that a negative 4y. So 2y plus negative 4y, if I add together those coefficients, 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2, so I get negative 2y. And then last but not least, negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So if I put this all together, my answer is 12y squared minus 2y minus 1. So I added together two trinomials, and my answer happened to still be a trinomial. Remember that the variable part does not change when you're adding or subtracting. The variable part does not change. So y squared stayed y squared. Y stayed y. You don't change your exponents at all on your variables. You add or subtract the coefficient numbers in front of them. Our next example, again, I'm going to go in order, standard form. So highest exponent, 4x squared plus negative 7x squared is negative 3x squared. Next, negative 2x plus 3x is 1x. And last, positive 7 plus negative 9 is negative 2. So my solution, negative 3x squared plus x minus 2. This next one says find each difference. So we're working with subtraction now. And what I hope that you remember is that subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Adding the opposite. You can think about this two ways. You could think about it as distributing. Like for example, this negative, you could put a 1 in front and you could distribute a negative 1. Or you could think about it as adding the opposite, changing it to an addition sign. So what that would look like, the first polynomial does not change, but the second one, if you change it into addition, you have to add the opposite. So the opposite would be negative 9y to the fourth plus 7y, then minus 2y squared. It's the same result you get if you were distributing the negative 1 up here, because negative 1 changes all of their signs. Now we can, in standard form, solve this like we did the last two examples. So I'm starting with the variable y to the fourth. So now I have positive 8 y to the fourth plus negative 9 y to the fourth. So that would be negative 1 y to the fourth. Next, 6y to the second plus negative 2y to the second. 6 plus negative 2 is 4, so 4y to the second. And last, negative 5y plus 7y would be positive 2y. So this is my solution. So over here in the question side, some of you may have learned this tick-tock, which is like changing the problem into addition, add the opposite. If you do that, you have to make sure that you take the opposite of the entire polynomial after the negative sign, after the minus sign. So we change our subtraction into addition and add the opposite. Or we think about it as subtracting 1 times that polynomial, and if you distribute the negative 1, you get the same result. Okay, my next one. So the first polynomial does not change at all. The second one, I am going to change into addition, and I'm going to add the opposite. So negative, then a positive, then a negative. So each sign has to change. Now, in standard form, first I have 11 n to the third, and that term does not have any like terms, so there's nothing to combine it with. Next, 6n squared plus negative 5n squared would be 1n squared. Next, 2n plus negative 4n is negative 2n. And last but not least, by itself, we have a plus 3. So there's my final answer. 11n to the third power plus n to the second power minus 2n plus 3. Okay, now we have a little application to geometry. It says find the perimeter. Perimeter, hopefully you remember, is the distance around. So if it's the distance around a figure, we need to add together all of the sides. It's a rectangle, so the rectangle has 4 sides, so I need to add together all 4 of them. So I have 3x plus 1/4, and then I have 7x minus 1/2, and then remember with the rectangle, opposite sides are equal in length, so I would have another 3x plus 1/4 and another 7x minus 1/2. Like terms, I can combine, so I'm going to combine all of these x's together, and that would give me 20x. Now, to combine these fractions, they need to have common denominators. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4. So I'm going to change both of these fractions so they're 2/4. Now, if you look at those fractions, adding fractions involves adding the numerators only. So 1/4 plus 1/4 minus 2/4 minus 2/4 equals, if I add just the numerators, 1 plus 1 is 2, minus 2 is 0, so then I have negative 2/4, and that reduces to negative 1/2. So this is my perimeter, 20x minus 1/2 units. They did not give us a label like inches or centimeters, so I can just label it units for perimeter. You should be able to write your summary now. about adding and subtracting polynomials. And here are your homework problems.